Welcome to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo here with my co-host today, Aaron Lujan,
Good morning.
and just a guy, Jim Miller.
Hello, hello.
All right, today we're talking about, well, Aaron, just go ahead and take us away.
Hashtag Nigeria genocide. Jason asked me, what are we going to talk about on this show? And one of the things that's always been near and dear to my heart is why isn't the American church loving and caring for those of us, the church, the global body that don't live in the United States? You know, while we're busy arguing about conferences and worship styles and church drama of, which worship leader got fired this week on Christianity Today, there has been 62,000 Christians murdered in Nigeria since the year 2000. Yes, 62,000. Over 8,000 Nigerian Christians have been killed or kidnapped by Muslim terrorists this year, according to the Twitter's Laura Logan. A famous journalist is backing these numbers up. Look it up for yourself. She's covering the genocide. It's the genocide that many are refusing to discuss. And I think the reason this is important for the American church isn't for the obvious reasons, which is we care and love our brothers and sisters, especially those that we share a church with. But this is a fulfillment of Christ's warning in Matthew 24:9. It says, "You will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me." You know, Nigeria is now the deadliest country for Christians on the globe. 5,000 plus murdered in 2023 alone. These attacks are not random. This is a systematic Islamic jihad designed to eradicate Christianity. What do you guys think?
I mean, the BBC in 2019 said Christian persecution at near genocide levels. I've mentioned it plenty of time that we have not talked at all about Boko Haram and the actions of the Boko Haram over in Africa and the killing of thousands of Christians. And we also see the same thing, Christians over in the Middle East being killed.
I think in China too.
Yeah, it's happening all over the place. And here we see evidence shows not only the geographic spread of anti-Christian persecution, but also its increasing severity. It's just not a topic that's covered in the American news. And with that being said, like most of the international stuff is not being covered. I mean, there was another earthquake in Turkey 2 days ago. I didn't see anything about it anywhere on Fox News, CNN, wherever.
There power there too?
No, there was a power outage. It was
in Portugal, huh?
Yes, there was a power outage in Spain and Portugal. Also not covered. And then really not covered by any American media was the India-Pakistan conflict. I mean, it like the international news that is not fitting the narrative in this country is not being reported on, or if it looks like it is not fitting the narrative that Muslims are the only ones being persecuted, or African Americans are the only ones being persecuted against. It doesn't get talked about.
Well, what's also really interesting is, yes, we are in a spiritual battle, but there's also a natural fight for resources. If you actually look at Nigeria, the southern part of that nation holds 90% of its oil wealth. So it's interesting that the Boko Haram, the Islamic militants, are targeting southern Nigeria, which is a Christian majority, but also an oil majority. So it would seem that this allegation of the Great Replacement in Nigeria, which is for radical Islamists to aim to outbreed and outnumber Christians in resource-rich regions, not only benefits the devil because he wants the Christians dead, but you have the UAE, China, and Western corporations investing, quote unquote, investing in the stolen land projects like oil, like mining, like agribusiness. And the UN and US, to Jason's point, why are we turning a blind eye? Because Nigeria is a strategic ally for those who actually run this country, which, guess what, by the way, is not you, it's not me, it's the big corporations. I don't know if am I being pessimistic or am I telling the truth?
No, you're 100% telling the truth. And if you look up and go through and try to find information on this genocide that's happening in Nigeria, you see very few articles. I mean, there's one from Fox News 2 weeks ago. Fears remain this Easter that Christians in Nigeria are being wiped out by Muslim extremists. It's going to be a wretched and fearful Easter for Christians in Nigeria. The killing and persecution of Christians by Islamist militants intent on creating a Muslim caliphate in this Western African country is continuing, apparently unchecked despite being 46% Christian. Nigeria's Christians are being wiped out. We need to call it what it is: genocide. Jeff King, president of International Christian Concern, a persecution watchdog, told Fox News Digital. Let's start with the horrible attacks on April 2nd and 3rd in 2025 in Nigeria's Plateau State, Bokos County. Over 60 Christians were slaughtered and 383 homes torched. King said families are being burned alive and kids were left homeless. It's gut-wrenching. The worst thing is that there's nothing truly special about this attack. This has gone on for 20 years and has only expanded. I mean, it's gone on for 20 years and it's not being talked about at all in this country.
2 decades worth and nobody's talking to it. And then back to his point, they're talking about which pasture or whoever else got like relieved or put to a new place or got in trouble, but not dealing with the rest of the stuff everywhere else. More concerned with first world problems like having internet or something than the rest of their congregation around the world. Sounds like a very complacent and complicit issue.
It also takes me back to COVID, because I said during COVID all the time, like, we have churches that have shut down their doors because they're afraid of a virus. But meanwhile, on Sunday, they're preaching that we have to give money for the overseas missionaries that are that their lives are at risk every
How
single
many
day.
missionaries have you taken out with this that are from the States? Actually, curious.
I don't have a strict number, but we just saw in South Africa, 2 weeks ago, South African missionary that was abducted, and basically they got him back pretty fast, but he was taken from his church on Sunday while his family was in attendance. They watched him being taken and being abducted. And luckily, they were able to find that man pretty quickly. But going back to that point, like, we have churches that are in the States that are so concerned about the missionaries overseas, and we're collecting funds, but then they were so fearful of a virus that they shut the doors of the church. Like, we don't have it right in America at all when it comes to the fact that Christians are being persecuted. We do need to provide support, but yet in this country, we're so fearful of a virus that we'll just shut down the doors of a church.
And to address just a guy question, because this is just a guy asking the question, right?
Yeah.
There's approximately 50 plus foreign missionaries in Western Africa that have been killed by Boko Haram, Fulani herdsmen, and ISIS. Over 500 plus Nigerian pastors and church workers murdered in the same period. And in 2023 alone, 15 plus foreign Christian aid workers, evangelists have been confirmed dead. And the reason so high, because missionaries often serve in high-risk zones and they're targeted for their evangelism. Islamic militants see them as apostates or crusaders. So Jim, it's a big problem, man.
Gotcha.
There's something that I want to add to the conversation. I'm wondering if God is testing us. I'm wondering if God is calling on the American church and saying, do you care? Do you care more about the air conditioning? Do you care more about the volume during worship? Or do you care about your brothers and sisters who are serving me and being murdered in the most horrific ways? Because in 1 Corinthians 12:26 says, if one part suffers, every part suffers with it. So where are the outcries in your Sunday sermon? Where are the protests? Where are the demands for government action? Is this a test of biblical justice? In Proverbs 24:11, it says, rescue those being led away to death. So will the church lobby governments to sanction Nigeria? Will we fund underground ministries? Will we shelter refugees? Or will we just post a prayer emoji and move on? I don't know.
I don't usually ask on the government for nothing, but where's the U.S. government for the citizens that are being snuffed out over there with this stuff? How come has there been anything said or done about it? Or has anybody been like, hey, man, those are our people. What are you doing? Don't touch our people. I don't care where you're from. It's just the way it's supposed to be. That's the whole point of kind of having a country and all, right?
It's the same conversation that I had for so long when it came to Venezuela and Maduro, and the fact that Venezuela went from being one of the wealthiest South American countries and one of the most economically stable countries in South America to, over the course of less than a decade, one of the most dangerous countries, a socialized country, where the first thing that they did was take the guns, and the American media did not cover it all. And the fact that we cared more to protect the people in certain parts of the world that were catching media attention, but ignored things that were going on in places like Nigeria and places like Venezuela, just seems like basically the entire military industrial complex is actually driven by where the media cares about where war is taking place, or where there's issues across the globe. And so I just, it takes me back to the time when we're sitting there watching Maduro take over this country and nobody's saying anything about it. And now all of a sudden we have Venezuelan gangs in Colorado and across the country wreaking havoc on the American public that are allowed to continue and sponsored by Venezuelan government. And we could have stopped it.
As you were talking about Venezuela, I couldn't help but think of the parallel between Nigeria and Venezuela. They're both mineral rich, they're both oil rich. So is it, call me conspiracy Kathy, but is it maybe that they're activating these Islamic jihadists at the behest of corporations to drive Christians off ancestral lands so they can get that lithium, so they can get that agriculture, that those grazing zones? They're burning villages, they're massacring families, and they're forcing survivors to flee on lands that are mining and grazing zones and are incredibly profitable to large U.S. Western-backed corporations. I don't know. Am I being too conspiratorial?
I don't think that you're being too conspiratorial. I mean, I think why we don't hear about the things that are going on across the world in the United States is just a very interesting dynamic. The fact that we got so focused on what was going on in the Middle East during the time of 9/11, and we've never gotten off of that focus. And then we have this focus and this fear of Russia. And so when Russia invades Ukraine, it's a hot news story because it's Russia. When it's something going on in the Middle East, it's a hot news story because it's Afghanistan and Iran and Iraq. But now you have Venezuela and nobody cares, and you have Nigeria and Boko Haram and all the other terrorism that's going on in Africa, and nobody cares because, well, it doesn't spark the enrage the entertainment values of what they care of America.
It just seems to be entertainment value. I mean, like, you said Ukraine. Remember before Russia did anything to Ukraine, we were being told, oh my gosh, they're a bunch of Nazis and racists and screw them. Ukraine can go to hell. Then they attacked Russia, and those same people are like, oh my God, I love Ukraine. We need to do some stuff. And then you're like, make up your mind, man. You're not even consistent with your crap. So I don't know. I think you're on point with it. It just doesn't have the entertainment value. It doesn't have the pizzazz, the pizzow, the whatever your gooseneck freaking word you used earlier.
Nigerian genocide is not on the palate of the American consumer.
It's not enough kerfunkel.
Yeah, not enough kerfunkel. That's
the kerfunkelage is a little low.
It's ridiculous. I mean, look, I always thought the news is supposed to just cover everything going on. The worst, the good, the bad, all of it. From puppies being found in a park to genocide in Nigeria. You're supposed to be telling me what's going on, not just what's conveniently or casually fitting in with whatever scripty narrative entertainment garbage you want me to digest all the time.
Fair enough. And Jason, that's the president. Revelation chapter 18, verse 13 warns of end times empires trading in slaves and human lives. I want to read it really quickly. For all the nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. I think that verse perfectly speaks to hashtag Nigerian genocide. I really do think that the merchants of the earth are the large corporations, the Black Rocks of the world. I think that the kings of the earth are the Epstein client list, and I think that all this luxurious living, call it electric vehicles and batteries and technology, is being paid for by the blood of the saints and the martyrs.
It's definitely an interesting take. I would have to do a whole lot more research and think about that and pray
I'm
on
wild today, Jason.
but
Forgive me.
you are getting a little wild. Well, this is Spiritual Insurgency. Join us every day during the week, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. and on the weekends at 10 a.m. This is just been a blast, and have a great day. God bless.
Peace.